I came here in the fall of 1972. It's almost 30 years, not quite, so things have changed an awful lot. I came here from an advertising agency in Greenville, South Carolina, Henderson Advertising. I worked for Henderson in Greenville for a couple of years, and before that in their Charlotte office for about a year. Prior to that, I worked for an agency in Washington. I worked for a retailer in Washington, but whatever I've done up until I started teaching had something to do with writing, with advertising writing, and it's something I teach now, so I'm still doing it.
Okay. When you came in 1972, what type of technology was being used by the different departments in the College of Journalism and Mass Communication?
I can't remember much at all, except of course there was a television studio with what would now be called very antiquated, heavy cameras that were very unreliable. And there were the little radio studios there. They were using large reel-to-reel tape, I think. I can't remember because it's not my area. In advertising, we were using virtually nothing in technology that I can recall. The graphics course, for example, was not a computer graphics course. It was a course in design and concept, and it was all done by hand.
Do you remember what the first piece of technology, it doesn't necessarily have to be a computer, but what's the first piece of technology that advertising, and when was it, that you can remember that started to filter into your courses?
I really can't remember other than the computer, because I guess I was using one I began using one at some point.
Do you remember when?
Not really. Let's see, IBM came out in what, 82 with the first PC, so it must have been around that time. The ironic thing is that faculty members were given an IBM computer. I think the original PC, it had a monitor which was one box and then a long horizontal box it sat on. I'm not even sure it had a hard drive. I think there were 2 floppies, but I may be wrong. We were working with PCs, and the labs were equipped with Macintosh computers, which seemed kind of strange. I was not teaching courses that required computers, so I wasn't working in the labs, but I always wondered why they bought Macintosh for the students and PCs for us. At some point, I think I'd been using a PC for a number of years and had gotten very comfortable with it and so forth. Of course, had a lot of files, PC files. Van Cornegay came by. We were talking in the hall or something, and somebody across the hall, I think, had gotten a Mac, and he said, "Jerry, why don't you get a Macintosh?" And I said, "Well, I don't want one. I've got all my files on PC and on the IBM, and I know they don't translate." He said, "Yeah, you can dump them into the Macintosh. It's no problem." I said, "I can?" I said, "Okay, I'll try one." And I got one of the, not the original Macs, but the same sort of prototype, the one-piece thing with a little tiny screen, black and white, that sat on my stand here, and I had the IBM next to it because that was my security blanket, and I had an IBM printer, so I couldn't print anything off the Macintosh. I don't know what I did really. I maybe found some way to print it through the PC, but at some point I requested a printer, and it was a matter of whether we had money for things in those days. I mean, a printer is essential. I mean, you need to have a printer, but I didn't get one for a while. Once I got the printer, I was so taken with the Macintosh that I said, here, you can take my PC away. And I've been working on a Macintosh ever since.
So you started off on a PC in like 82, and you switched over to a Mac when?
Well, let's see, the Macs came out in 84. The PC, it may have been later than 82. I really don't remember. And I don't remember how long I stayed on a Mac, but it was probably several years, on a PC, but it was probably several years because I was also using one. I had two jobs at that point at the university. I was with the University 101 program and had a PC up there. And I suspect, I suspect it wasn't until after I left there, which was 1989, that I began using a Macintosh. Because it would have posed a problem had I been using a Mac down here and a PC there. So somewhere after 89, I began using a Mac. It seems like I've been using one forever. But that's still 10 years.
So what did getting your first IBM or switching over to a Mac, how did it change your work?
Again, I take it for granted so much now that it's hard to, it's hard to look back that far. It was easy to generate things for class quickly and copy them. We didn't have the internet, so that was out of the picture. With a Mac, I began having fun with typefaces and things to make my course handouts look better. All I'm thinking of right now is when I first came here, we were still using mimeograph. And if you wanted to copy something, that was very special. You ran it off on this somebody ran it off for you, because I wouldn't touch the thing because you got your hands all full of ink. And all of a sudden, all of that antiquated equipment just disappeared with the computers and with the printers and with the copiers, and it was just a whole new thing, a lot simpler. I've come in many a morning and thought of something I wanted to do in class, typed it up an hour before class, run it off, brought it in. Couldn't do that before. A lot more flexibility. And as you know, the easier it is to do things and the faster it is to do things, the more things you do. So started doing more things and staying busier. And that's the curse of the whole thing, I think, but maybe it's worth it.
Okay. Do you remember when you first got email?
Nope. Again, it seems like I've had it all my life here, but I know that hasn't been the case. The original email that I got was through the university mainframe. I can still get it that way, but I don't. It looks ugly. It's green on black, no formatting, just type there. I'm now using Netscape Mail, and it's much easier to use and it's much easier to read, but that certainly has revolutionized my work and my life.
How so?
Well, I'm right now, I was just telling somebody I'm working on a textbook revision, and I can attach manuscripts of chapters to an email, send them to my publisher. They can open them up. They can do some editing right on screen there and send them back to me. So we're working much faster now. That's one thing. It's a little bit easier to stay in touch with students also, if students will use email, because I suspect that if they call me and I'm not here, some leave a message, some hang up, but an email is always there. You open it, you read it, and you respond to it. And I like that.
So you don't remember any changes that occurred when everybody got email here?
Yeah, we have an internal email system, as you know, quick mail, and that's made it easier for faculty to arrange things, to set meeting times, to transmit information. That's made a big difference. Yeah, that's made a big difference.
So you wouldn't go back to the days before email?
Oh, absolutely not. I needed to set up a meeting, and I have a group called faculty there, and I needed to send it to all faculty. I just typed it up, sent it to faculty. got a response from individual people.
So who, do you remember people who you would think were important in computerizing the college?
I can think of Van Cornegay. And aside from that, quite frankly, I don't know. I'm sure we had technicians here who set the thing up, but I don't remember anyone standing out as being innovative. I mean, there were people who just installed the things. But as far as I can remember, Van, and I'm not sure how long Van has been here, got things rolling and got the faculty computer friendly.
Do you think the industry was doing it at the same time? Do you think you preceded the industry, or the industry preceded you?
Which industry?
Your own, advertising.
I seem to recall that, and this is so ironic because you'd think they'd be ahead of us. I seem to recall that advertisers were slow in going all the way with computers. Art directors would resist it because they said, I want hands-on stuff. I want to be able to work on a board here, because that's the way they'd always worked. I want my typeset by this type house, and I want to be able to paste it in, and if I want to change the spacing on it, on a headline, I want to be able to take my X-Acto knife and trim out a little piece of space there, which was arduous. I mean, it took hours. So I do recall one of my students, former students, a grad student, who was working in Atlanta at the time at a business-to-business agency, and I don't know what year this was, but he called me and he said, well, we've finally gone all computers. We have taken out the last art director's easel, and now they sit at a desk just like copywriters, and they work on the screen. And that was a revolution. And that was sometime after we were using computers.
So it would have been, what do you say, early 90s?
Perhaps, but I'm not sure. I'm terrible at dates. I don't remember exactly when all these things happened. But that may be about right.
Do you remember any resistance to the movement of computers? For you, it's been a positive experience, but do you remember people or events, even if you take the names off of them, that are examples of resistance to computers moving in, or any type of technology, really?
Here in the college?
Yeah, here in the college.
Nothing comes to mind. I'm sure there were some people who perhaps privately said, I don't want anything to do with this, but I've got to go along, so they went along, but I'm not aware of anything that stands out.
So you think that most of the faculty pretty much...
I just think they realized it was happening, so they'd better get involved. It's hard for people to change, and it was a learning experience for all of us. I was very fortunate in that I had a grad assistant at the time. I haven't had a grad assistant for years, but I had a grad assistant at the time who was very familiar with computers, and he's the one who actually got me on a computer. They put these things in our offices, and there was no formal training program, and we were working with DOS, and I just was scared of this thing. All the things that I laugh at now, I'm going to break it or this, that, and the other. And Dan, my grad assistant, said, I'm going to get you on this computer if it kills me. And he started me off, and he said, if you get stuck, just call me up. What do I do now? Do I answer the phone?
Sure.
Okay.
And what I can do is I can go back to my notes. And, you were talking about a grad assistant named...
Dan.
Dan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Named Dan. Do you remember his last name?
Dan Ensley, E-N-S-L-E-Y.
Do you know if he's still around somewhere?
I've lost touch. I haven't been in contact for years. The last time I talked to him, he was teaching at Campbell University in North Carolina, teaching mass comm or broadcasting actually was his field, I think. Wonderful person.
Okay. And so Dan the university provided no assistance in training?
I think the computer center must have offered some courses. They do now. But it was sort of catch as catch can, you know. The way the whole thing was done, you know. Oh, you want an IBM, we'll give you an IBM. You want a Macintosh, we'll give you a Macintosh. Van will tell you this too, I think, that there was no overall planning, that there wasn't time, or nobody took the time to sit down and say, what are the computing needs of this college? And how can we establish some kind of a network so everybody can talk to one another? I mean, that just wasn't done that way. Even today, we have 2 or 3 people who have PCs, and it's difficult to keep in touch with them, which I've never understood. I know why that happened. It was because someone who's no longer here was a PC freak and said, you know, this is the only computer you're going to use. Apple's going to disappear. You know, you've got to be on PCs or you'll be out of business, which is a little ridiculous. And so he got some, and so somebody else said, I want one because I've got one at home. So we still have a few people with PCs, and I have trouble sometimes reaching them, which is a bother.
How so do you have trouble?
I think we finally solved it, but through our quick mail, you know, trying to get people together for something or get an announcement out, I think we've solved it now. But also, I can't attach a file, a Mac file, because they generally can't open it.
Can you open their files?
Yeah, I think I have done that. I think generally the Macintosh it's a lot more flexible in that respect.
Do you have any? This is the point where you can just reminisce to me, if you desire, about anything about any type of technology that has affected you or affected people around you, or if you have any stories of what was, even if they're pseudo-apocryphal, as long as you tell me they're pseudo-apocryphal, so I don't, you know, so that I can categorize them. What I'm looking for is attitudes and opinions and you know, the same type of memories that you would want if you were doing a history of your hometown.
Well, again, not much comes to mind. Maybe this isn't my day. Another inconsistency we have here is that there are people who like certain word processing programs and people who like others. So again, we're not uniform, and that's been a source of irritation to me. I'm using Microsoft Word not because I like it, but so that I can talk to some other people. I'm trying to think of some anecdotes.
In all oral histories, you'll remember them when I walk out the door.
What?
You'll remember them when I walk out the door.
I know.
We can always reschedule another. If you go, oh, I remember 12 things.
Yeah.
There's still videotaped.
But this is a topic that just doesn't bring anything to mind. Funny story, but it has nothing to do with the university, but it has to do with computers. I spent a summer in London on a grant of shadowing people at an agency in London, an ad agency, McCann Erickson, and I was doing a diary, a journal, so I could come back and write up the experience. And I couldn't find a computer in the whole agency. There were so few. Now this was in the last 10 years, I think. I know that's changed, but there were so few. I think the media department had a few of them, and then they said, well, you can use this today, but somebody's got to use it the rest of the week. So in desperation, I asked if there was another machine around. And finally, somebody took me downstairs to the business manager's office, I guess, one of the big honchos at the company. He had a computer, and he had all of the payroll information on the hard drive on it, you know, and all of the way they cut checks and all this, who knows. And they left me in there with this thing, and the man was on vacation for 2 weeks, so they said, you can come in his office anytime and use the computer. And you know what I did? I went to copy something onto my disk, and in doing so, somehow destroyed all of his payroll, all that information. And I was petrified. I said, here I am in London. I don't even know this man. And I said, nobody's going to get paid is the first thing I thought. So I never told anybody. I just went along my way, you know. 2 weeks later, the man came back, and I passed him in the hall, and I tried to avoid him, and he said, you destroyed my information. And I said, really? And, you know, I was just trying to play real dumb. And he said, I had to call somebody. Apparently, he was able to have it restored. He called, I don't know, some outside source. And they came back and set it up. It was a program. It was not a document that you couldn't retrieve, but it was a program. But I learned a lesson there. And, you know, computers can be tricky with you sometimes. I've been revising chapters for a textbook, and you get real tired. Chapter 1's up there, and you revise it. Then I have a zip drive, and I back up on a zip drive. Not once, but twice, I backed up the wrong way and lost all my corrections. So the third time, I was very careful. But that's a small price to pay for the convenience and the efficiency.